Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Kirk Wallace, who is the programs manager for Armenian Environmental Network, which is basically engaged in projects that are sustainable environmental projects that lead to long-term improvement and all of the good stuff that sustainable environment's supposed to do, yes?
Correct.
Now, what do you think, and I know that you've been there and have watched, what do you think of these bursts of passionate civic activism?
It's great. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I thought Monday was a great day for Armenia. A small step, but a great day.
Why Monday?
Monday was the day that they had said enough is enough. The protesters, and they went down to the mayor's office. They wanted to have an audience with the mayor to discuss civilly what was going on in the park. To look at the licenses, to see how the process went. Why were these kiosks put there in that park? So they went down to the mayor's office and he basically turned them away, said he wouldn't see them. So the protesters, I gathered there were about 300 of us total, walked down to Mashtots Park and walked into the park where we're at that point. One of the activists stood up and said, "What do you guys want to do?"
A little democracy at work here?
That's exactly what I thought of. It was complete. It was very inspiring. And they said, "Let's go inside." Okay. The problem with going inside, and when he said inside, what he meant was into the construction zone. The construction zone had been cleared out a few days prior by the police.
The construction zone is the structure itself, or around the structure as well?
It's the structure itself. It takes a while to build these, so they've laid the foundations. So what was there was foundations and the beginnings of the outside of the walls. I was there on another day when the cement trucks that were coming in for some of the foundation work were stopped. They just lined up across the road and stopped them. Well, this got the owners a little upset, so they called in the police. So they asked the mayor for help. He called in the police. The activists were escorted out of the construction area.
And the police have been really restrained and polite and...
Yeah, absolutely. So on this day...
Don't say yeah, that's a great thing.
Yes. No, the police have been totally professional. They sit around, they talk with us and converse with us and have little mini debates. The police have been fantastic. The construction workers have been fantastic. Really nice guys. They understand that something's up. But on this day, on Monday, they just said, "Let's go inside," which meant inside the area that was still being constructed. The problem was the police were there surrounding it, along with some metal barriers, and the construction workers were inside. But it didn't stop them. It was like spontaneous. Boom. All of a sudden, 100 people were pushing to get inside, pushing past the police, who were nonviolent, and right into the area, and they reoccupied it. This to me was a signal of bigger things, but it was a positive signal that's saying, okay, there is a law, there are laws on the books, these laws need to be followed. The rule of law will prevail one day, is what they're saying.
You're talking about Monday, February 20th.
Yes.
And this is several weeks after the mayor's office succeeded in removing, and when we're talking about stores, we're talking about boutiques, right? For people who haven't been to Armenia, we're talking about boutiques of 50 square feet, 60 square feet?
Let's imagine as a trailer home. Okay.
The size of a trailer home that's been moved off of the sidewalk on Abovian, beautiful old street, onto a little portion of a park that actually crosses Mashtots Boulevard.
Yes.
So from one end of this park street, which I think is called Main Avenue, from one end there's the post office, it comes all the way to Mashtots. There's nothing being done there. Now we have the other side of Mashtots, which is a small area where they want to put 2, 3, 4 shops.
More than that. There are already, I thought there were approximately maybe 4 to 6 on one side of the park, and then the new zone, they're putting 3 to 4 more. I don't know how many they're going to put total, but there are a bunch there.
And so the activists are a group of young people who, over this last year, have registered a couple of successes.
Yes.
Principally at Turchgan, the waterfall around which a hydroelectric power plant was to be built.
Correct.
And now is, at least for now, is not to be built.
Correct.
Do you see the ability, the readiness to do long-term strategizing? Do they see their strength in policy making, or is there strength in on the spur of the moment activism and rallying the public?
Okay, that's a great question. TurchCon, for those that don't know, there was a move to put a hydroelectric plant on the top of this waterfall. And these activists, these are the same ones that are at Mashtots. They stopped the construction. That was their first victory. Mashtots, no matter what happens there now, is a victory. It is a clear-cut, no doubt victory for this activist movement, for these environmentalists. Now, speaking for strategy, I believe these young people understand what is going on. They're starting to believe in themselves. And not only that, other people are starting to believe. There's a belief that maybe the rule of law will prevail here one day. And they understand that they do need to strategize. They understand they need organization, and they're working on that right now. Right now, it's pretty spontaneous. Right now, these guys, they're more gut than anything else. They have a lot of guts, and so they go for it. But they do know and they understand that they're going to have to sit down and strategize a little more. And I think they're aware of that, and I think they're working on it. And I think really the big issue coming up is Teirut. Now, Teirut is a forest up in the northern part of Armenia, in Lorimaz. And they have been fighting against this for years, and they've had little to no success right now. Now, the issue up there is there's a mine going up there, a mine put in by a corporation called Valex. And
the economic interests are clearly different up there versus down here with a couple of shops.
Clearly different. They're going to use, the main employers are from the villages of Teirut and Shnol, which is up there. And so that provides these villagers with jobs. Now, the issue here is the forest. Because Armenia is losing its forests at a rapid pace, because it's, I've heard the figures as low as 6. I've heard a lot of 8%, 6%. That's the amount of forest remaining in Armenia. So this forest up in Teirut has even more value because they're so rare here. And Valex wants to put a copper mine up there in the forest. Okay? Now, speaking for Valex has followed every step. They've done all the legal steps they're required to do. They've got their licenses, they've had their public hearings.
Environmental impact reports, are they required?
They are required. They're required, and this is the point I was going to get to with the Mashtots issue. An environmental impact assessment was required there with public hearings, wasn't done. It was required up in Teirut, it was done. The issue with the Teirut activists is that some of the steps were shortcutted. For example, the environmental impact assessment, which was conducted by a subsidiary of Valex. They owned this company that did the assessment. And this has the activists kind of in an uproar right now. Do
the activists have the capacity to either do alternate studies or to at least correctly assess the existing study? Is that capacity there? The
capacity is there. There is a company that has agreed to come in. They're from the Netherlands. They have agreed to come in and for free conduct this environmental impact assessment in Teirut. Okay? But the key is they need to be invited in. They need to be invited in by the president of the country. The president of the Republic of Armenia has to say, come on in and we'll do it.
Why is that?
Because if a company just comes in and does it, well, first of all, they'd have to have permission of Valex too, okay? The president, when the assessment is done, the conclusions, the mitigations for environmental damage have to be either assessed and then
presented to someone.
Okay, so we have this list of mitigations. So what do you do with that list of mitigations? Well, then you have to mitigate, and in order for that to happen, the president would have to say, okay, I'm going to enforce this. So the president must say, you come on in and you do this impact assessment. They need to be
legitimized from the very beginning.
Right. So now, is it in their best interest to do that? No. And I would tell you this, Valex probably wants no part of a new independent assessment. They've already had
the letter of the law.
They've already followed the letter of the law. They've done what they have to. However, I think it's legitimate for the activists, for the environmentalists to call into question that assessment. If I'm diagnosed with a cancer, The first thing I'm going to do is go get a second opinion. We're talking Tehut, which has many, many dozens of red book species that exist in this forest. Okay? So it is completely understandable that the activists would say, I want a second opinion. And I think they deserve this second opinion. Now, if Valex, for example, is truly confident that their company did an appropriate environmental impact assessment, they should have no problem with this. The people that are going to have a problem with this are the activists. And the reason I think they might have a problem with this is because if the impact assessment comes back saying, yeah, you can put the mine there, you can go ahead and put the mine there. It's going to cost a lot of money, you got to do this, you got to do that. The activists may still be upset about the mine being there anyway. However, science must prevail in this case.
Well, two things are happening simultaneously. This is one of the few areas in public policy where there really are two sides, vocal, public, transparent, visible. Some would argue if both sides are totally transparent, but you know what I mean. This is a public argument going on. And we aren't yet accustomed to listening to each other and giving and taking and compromising. So that's one process that's going on. The other is strictly, technically, environmentally, and maybe we end with this and then talk about Tehut again in the future. Technically, what does the rest of the world do? Is it possible to have a copper mine that is minimally intrusive and still allows for economic growth and can somehow be a golden mean? Are copper mines the kinds of mines that are possibly clean?
Well, you know, that's a great question. Mining is inherently dirty and it's destructive and messy. But if we didn't have mines, we wouldn't be sitting in this building right now. So they're necessary. There are ways to, this is an open pit mine, by the way. They're just going to strip off the forest and put in dig. It's cheaper that way. They could consider going underground with it, but that's really expensive. And I assume if they were given that option, they would say no to it. Yeah, there are ways to do it cleaner. There are a lot of ways to do it a lot cleaner. And unfortunately for Armenia, Armenia does not have a history of adherence to any kind of environmental standards when it comes to the mining industry. They're incredibly careless and blatantly careless about any kind of environmental standards.
Not even letter of the law.
Not even letter of the law. To this point, in the history, as far as I know, as my knowledge takes me, Valex has been the best in terms of following the letter of the law in this regard. And in that way, they've set a nice precedent. If somebody wants to come in and put up a mine here, Valex follows the law. We should follow the law. But the next step in this is to do what I consider an appropriate environmental impact assessment.
Thank you, Kirk Wallace,
You're very
who
welcome.
heads Armenian Environmental Network, and who said this was going to be easy.
No.
But it's a fascinating process to watch, activism that's so passionately environment issues based. Thank you for talking to us. We'll keep talking.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.